Hi, everybody. I'm Chicago psychic and intuitive consultant Mel Doer, the Aloha shirt psychic today without an Aloha shirt. But you really don't have to have an Aloha shirt uh, to have the Aloha spirit. Aloha is a Hawaiian word. It means hello, it means goodbye, and it also means love. So that whole Aloha spirit of Hawaii is about giving and caring and accepting and sharing and all about love. So I don't have the shirt on, but I got the spirit. Anyway, it's right around Thanksgiving time. I posted a video yesterday, both alone and I was on Linda G's channel. Yay, hi, Linda. And today I just wanted to post something really quickly about the lack of love and understanding and tolerance that we see going on in our country. And I thought about Paul Gosar. He was the, I think, Republican from Arizona who posted that animation about a video that glorified the murder of a colleague and threatened violence against the president of the United States. I thought threatening a president was against the law. And I see how toxic that politics has become in this country and how polarized that we are. Gosar was censured, but I find it amazing that the Republican leadership never admonished him, but only attacked the process the Dems used for censuring him. In fact, McCarthy, who is minority speaker of the House, a Republican, stood for 8.5 hours spewing disinformation, lies, vitriol about a bill, the Build Back Better bill, how he was against it and all of this stuff. It was a bill that's great for the American people, in my opinion, but he didn't say one single word of admonishment about the atrocity of his own member of his party that posted that animated video. Now, if a Democrat had done something like that, oh my God, they would have been ridden out of town on a rail. I just find the hypocrisy. A lot of people aren't going to run again. A lot of talented politicians, because of the toxicity in the House and the Senate. I'm the kind of person, I wouldn't let that toxicity waltz me out the front door. But then again, I'm not getting my families threatened or things like that, that these very good people that are doing their job are having to put up with because of the likes of Gosar and McCarthy and Marjorie Taylor Greene. And we can throw in Matt Gaetz and, some of the Ted Cruz's on the Senate side. So somebody asked me if I would channel, some politicians or something that were in spirit. And I started thinking of Abraham Lincoln. And I thought, boy, I wonder what it was like before the Civil War. Was there this kind of disharmony? Was there this sort of toxicity and violence going on in Congress, in the House and the Senate? And so I did some research. And I found that 3 decades, even 30 years before the Civil War, there were more than 70 violent incidences in the House and the Senate. In fact, I think it was a House member, Preston Brooks. No, I'm sorry, he might have been a senator. Anyway, he beat a pro-slavery Southerner, Senator Charles Brooke, with a cane until Senator Brooke was unconscious on the Senate floor and nobody stopped him. During those days, congressmen carried pistols and knives onto the congressional floor, and there were actual fistfights and mob attacks against those members of the House and senators that were abolitionists. Abolitionists were the ones that were calling for the end of slavery. And it says that, you know, in the 1830s, 1840s, 1850s, it was such a divide between the parties, like we're seeing now, that an insult against a congressperson or a senator was considered an insult against the entire party. In fact, there was a duel. I'm probably mispronouncing his name, Jonathan Cilley, C-I-L-L-E-Y, and William Graves. They engaged in a duel that neither one wanted to defend their respective political parties. I think because one person criticized the other in a letter, and so you know, one had a reputation for attacking congressmen. But anyway, it was all because of party cult differences. So it ended up that the party told Graves, he was a Whig and they were abolitionists, that he should challenge Siley to a duel. Now, the Democrats in those days were like Republicans now. The Democrats in those days were pro-slavery. They were a lot of racists and bigots. Anyway, so the two had a duel with rifles. That was on February 24th, 1838. They met for a duel in Maryland. They both had rifles and both missed each other because I guess they were bad shots. And they did it for 2 rounds. They missed each other. I would have just called it a day, right? But on round 3, Graves, a Whig, shot and killed Siley. Boy, the repercussions from that one were huge. In fact, it was outlawed that duels could take place in Congress against Congress people or against senators to each other. It didn't stop the violence, though, because there were a lot of violence in state legislators. In Arkansas, the speaker murdered a representative on the House floor because the representative had insulted him. And the divisiveness grew and grew and grew. When I intuit or hook into the energy of President Lincoln, I'm sure he's very angry and very upset about what's going on in this country today. So a lot of the things that were happening in the House of Representatives and in the Senate back then are a lot of the same divisiveness, toxicity that we see today. And if we're going to avert a larger rift in this country, and which could lead to a civil war, I think we're already having a bloodless one. Lincoln warns that we have to get it together. We have to start meeting in the middle. We have to say that we won't accept this toxicity and this lack of decorum in the Senate or in Congress. We won't allow people to carry guns in, which they do routinely. Thank you, Marjorie Taylor Greene. A lot of they call them conservative Republicans. Conservatism, in my opinion, is not about being racist or bigoted or prejudiced. That's not conservatism. That's just racism and authoritarianism. That's not conservatism. Conservatism is not authoritarianism. But these people want chaos. They want to cause dissension, because if they can create a lot of chaos, they can say, see what happens? It's everybody else's fault and we can fix it. So they perpetuate hate, fear, violence, because it helps them to hang on to power. And I think one of the ways to fight that is through education and through truth. And now there's an old saying that, a lie goes around the world 1.5 times, why truth is still lacing its shoelaces. But my guides show me that truth will in fact win out, that we must be persistent and we must take action on all of this violence. Those insurrectionists were just that. And people say, oh, they didn't know it was going to be that violence in the Capitol. Excuse me. If they didn't know that they were going to try to storm the Capitol, why did they bring mace? Why did they bring guns? Why did they bring assault weapons? Why did they carry all that stuff? You just don't carry those things to a peaceful protest. And it's pretty obvious to me that, the Trump and his cronies are behind all of this. They're feeding gasoline to this fire. And it seems to be getting worse. That attack on the Capitol was well organized. It was well thought out. And in my opinion, it was planned. So some of the insurrectionists that day, they're getting a slap on the wrist, but I still feel they should be having stiffer fines and penalties and jail time for especially the ones that were carrying weapons and the ones that injured police officers. It's unfortunate that the racists in this country and the Trumplicans are making those people heroes. Just like Kyle Rittenhouse, they're making him a hero. But I got news for you. That money that Rittenhouse has gotten, I think it's over $2 million, he's not going to be able to keep, because there's going to be lawsuits filed by each of those people who died. And a couple of them are going to win. So he's going to have to come up off that money. And I think it's going to be ruled that any monies he makes because of the crime he committed, he's going to have to make restitution to the victims, the people he killed. And I call them victims, unlike the judge in that case. One of the ways we can fight this, Lincoln spirit tells me, is to stop the bullying. Marjorie Taylor Greene is a bully. Ted Cruz is a bully. McCarthy's just an idiot as far as I'm concerned. And I can tell you for a fact that Trump is meeting with him on a regular basis, and McCarthy's telling Trump everything, and Trump is pulling his strings. McCarthy is just a puppet to Trump, and it's frightening. He's pulling a lot of people's strings. People say, why don't some of the Republicans stand up to Trump? Some are afraid of him, but others just don't want to, because they want to hang on to their power at all costs. So it's not about what's right for the American people. It's only about what's right for them and them holding on to their power and their money. Anyway, Lincoln's spirit is appalled at what's going on in this country today. The insurrectionists, the Marjorie Taylor Greenes, Matt Gaetz, Paul Gosars, McCarthy, Trump, Bannon, they're bullies, and they're bullying the rest of us. It's that small group of Trumplicans that are telling the rest of us what to do. It's the American apartheid, it really is. So how can we stop it? We have to stand up to the bullies. That is what is coming through from my guides and from the spirit of Lincoln. We must stand up to the bullies. We must put fear aside. We must stand up, speak up, vote. A lot of people think, well, if the election's rigged and everybody's predicting that the Dems are going to win, we shouldn't vote. Wrong. Vote, vote, vote. I don't care if your congressperson or your senator or whatever your representative is a Democrat or Republican. You need to call them, write them, get petitions to say you will not tolerate bullying, racism, bigotry, whatever. Because after all, those people can be fired too. no matter how much they try to restrict our right to vote, I see people peacefully protesting in the streets saying, no, you cannot restrict our rights to vote. That's part of us standing up to the bullies. Now, the bullies are going to say we're bullying them. That's always what bullies do. But we're all smart enough to know what's going on. You know, people wonder how people could fall for that QAnon stuff. Well, you know, P.T. Barnum said there's a sucker born every minute. And I think a lot of people intellectually know better, but emotionally they'll hold on to anything that will do what? That will keep their political people in power, specifically the Trumplicans, you know? And it's not only uneducated people, there are some educated people who are falling for the QAnon crap. But I think anybody with half a brain can figure out that, wait a minute, this brainwashing won't work. And that's exactly what it is. It's the Trumplicans brainwashing Trump's base, because they're playing on their xenophobia, their fear of people coming in and taking over, and their fear of, you know, losing their rights. But they want to instill their rights on all of us. So we have to stand up to the bullying. We have to put the fear aside. They rule by instilling fear. We won't be fearful. We'll let the fear push us forward. You know, I grew up in the South in the late 60s and early 70s. And in high school, I was bullied. I was called sissy, faggot, queer. And I knew I was gay, but I wasn't out of the closet because I thought I was the only one. I remember cutting school for 2 or 3 weeks, and the truant officer called, and I got in big trouble. But I couldn't tell my parents I didn't want to go to school because I was getting beat up and I was getting bullied. Because I was fearful. If they said, why? What was I going to tell them? You know, I remember PE class. I wasn't the one that could throw the ball the furthest. I wasn't into football. And they used to make fun of me. They said that for Christmas, I was going to get an easy bake oven, or they call me Susie Homemaker, just because I wasn't sports minded or sports talented. So it was very bittersweet for me. So I hung around with kids that also got bullied, that weren't accepted. And at one point, they even said I was a behavioral problem because I had cut school for 3 weeks, only because I was in fear. So I know what it's like to be bullied. And it took me years to work through it, years. At one of my high school reunions, I took my cousin and she pretended to be my wife. It was kind of my payback. But I told everybody that at the end I was gay. Anyway, so I've lived that bullying, and it's horrible. It's absolutely horrible. And I don't want a bunch of people to feel sorry for me. That's not why I'm saying this. It's just that when you're bullied, you have to stand up. You have to say, I will not be a victim. And it took me years to come to that realization that I never had to be a victim again. You know, I was so nervous when I went to college. I was like, well, what if that is, what, am I going to be bullied there? Because I was in high school. In college, I wasn't. But what happened was I overcompensated. You know, I thought I was the big McGap. I got into partying. I got into this. I got into drinking, you know, a few drugs. I was just really immature, and I flunked out my first year. And then I quit to help take care of my grandfather who had cancer. And then I moved to Chicago for a couple of years. And that's when I started really doing my psychic work. And I got into the spiritualist movement and really metaphysical stuff. And after a couple of years here in Chicago, I decided to move back to Kentucky. And I went back to college. And toward the end of that, you know, it's later on when I figured out I had ADD. But I didn't even know at that point I was emotionally capable of handling it. But at any rate, you know, some of the police officers in Bowling Green, Kentucky in those days didn't like gay people. And I was arrested once. They said we were drunk and disorderly, but I hadn't drinking anything. I hadn't drank, whatever. I hadn't had anything to drink. But we were arrested, and to try to fight it, forget it. So, you know, would I want to relive those things again? No. But I decided that I was no longer going to live my life in fear. You know, people here in Chicago have been very kind to me, and my family in Kentucky is very kind to me as well. But I've been able to live my life in who I am and to be free to be who I am. Now, some folks don't like it. That's their problem. But I will not allow them to live my life for me. You know, I remember one time here, somebody asked me if I was some born again right winger, like, are you a practicing homosexual? And I said, I didn't really have to practice. And because I was a psychic, she told me I was the devil and da 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 da. I politely asked her to leave my office. Because I grew up with all that. And so I'm not trying to force my beliefs on anybody. On the same token, they don't have to force those on me. But I think acceptance is the key as well. I might not like their opinion, but it doesn't mean we have to hate them as a person. So we can speak up against intolerance, and we can hate prejudice, and we can hate bigotry. Absolutely. But it's like Pete Buttigieg says about being gay. Sometimes you just have to educate people. And we're not going to change everybody. That's not our purpose. Our purpose is to be who we are. When other people see that, maybe they'll follow suit. So anyway, Lincoln came through and he said, we have, you know, and so I asked the question, is it hopeless in this country? And he said, no, it isn't hopeless as long as people don't give up. I mean, we have to continue to fight against injustices, and we have to say, we're not going to tolerate the lack of decorum, the lack of respect that's going on in the House. It's almost like people like Marjorie Taylor Greene thumb their middle finger. I'll carry a gun if I want to. Well, there's rules, honey. You're supposed to be a legislature. You're making the laws that you want us to follow, but yet you don't want to follow rules. Hello. So, here's my proselytizing. I asked the president and my guides if democracy would endure. They tell me it's very fragile right now. It could very easily break, but they also say it won't, as long as we do our jobs. As long as we say, we're going to vote, you won't restrict our rights to that. You're not going to, everybody's born equal. We have to hold to that. And we just need to speak up against the inappropriateness of people like Trump. I think he unleashed a Pandora's box. It was a lot of things in a very small group of Americans that had always been there. The hate, the prejudice, the disharmony. I talked to a friend of mine this morning. She's a woman of color. We've been friends for years. She's been coming to me for 35 years, and she inspired me to do this video today. And I'll just say thank you, Desiree. She lives in Atlanta. I said, you poor thing. I'm sorry, not Atlanta, Nashville. And Nashville's a beautiful city. But unfortunately, like anywhere else, there's still a lot of discrimination there. Anyway, I said, what's it like? Because she's from Chicago originally. And she said in the building where she lives, a lot of times if she gets on the elevator, that some of the Caucasian people will take the stairs. They won't talk to her. They turn their back on her. And I just find that not acceptable at all. So she's moving back to Chicago. So I think when we see that happening, we need to dip it in the bud immediately. And that comes through also legislation for human rights, things like that. So this Thanksgiving, let's have peace, but let's also say that we will not tolerate injustice. We will not tolerate hate. We will not tolerate bigotry. We will not tolerate prejudice. And just remember that even though people are different, we're all human. So my guides assure me that democracy still has a huge fighting chance, and that we do what we're talking about, it will survive. Okay, I'll put more videos up. Just Thanksgiving week, and it would be appropriate to give some messages daily between now and Thanksgiving. Everybody be safe, be careful. Namaste. I love you all. Oh, and by the way, I just got to say this. Somebody had sent me a message about the way I pronounce tarot. She said it's, I forget. How'd she say it? Tarot or something, I forget. And I found out there's different ways to pronounce it. So my pronunciation wasn't wrong. And she said that it was funny that I was teaching everyone how to pronounce Waukesha, but I mispronounced tarot. And she went on to break down how it was pronounced. The reason that I told people to, that I didn't tell people, but the reason I said it's pronounced Waukesha is because somebody had sent me a personal note, a personal email, how's it pronounced? So, and ask if I would pronounce it. So that's why I did that. I wasn't correcting anybody. You know, if I mispronounce the word, let me know. But and then she said something about professionalism. I don't know. So, you know, I will continue to say tarot because it's not inappropriate. And there are certain regional differences in the way we pronounce words. There's certain vowel shifts. So I still have some of my Kentucky accent, and Chicago has its own unique accent. So in Chicago, instead of saying back, they say back. So it's that eh. So I think before we criticize others for their pronunciations, let's stop to take a moment and accept the fact that they're communicating and honor the fact that they might have a different accent and might have a different background. So I like tarot. All right, everybody, stay safe and well. Until we speak again, namaste.